there, friends and sane persons, and welcome to another episode of Wednesday Whimsy. I'm Kyle, and Wednesday Whimsy is a short show I do every Wednesday evening where I talk about a board game, a top 10, some sort of a topic, amusing, whatever happens to be on my mind that week. Well, I have been in Gen Con mode. I am back from Gen Con, here recording live on a Wednesday. If you'll recall, last week I talked about the things I was looking forward to at Gen Con, and so I thought, well, I might as well go through and talk about my experiences with those things, and then also tell you about the top 5 games I tried at Gen Con. So, without further ado, that's a lot to talk about, so we'll jump into the topic. So, if you recall, last time I said one of the things I was really looking forward to was scheduled events. I indicated that I don't like to have a lot scheduled, but having a few events that I can go to and kind of plan my day around, that can be fun. So this time I had a few events. My brother scheduled pretty much all of them. There was a role-playing game, a D&D session. We tried a game called D&D Onslaught, which also was somewhat D&D-ish. And we played a game, ultimately played a game that I'll talk about later that was in my top 5, a new storytelling game. It was not pre-scheduled. We scheduled it the day of. We had scheduled the Summoner Wars tournament, which I'll talk about separately. And we played a new scenario for the Arkham Horror card game. So I enjoyed these, right? They were fun. I really enjoyed the D&D session. It was just a lot of fun. It was my first time ever playing an actual role-playing game, and everyone told me this wasn't usually how it is. It was kind of a special scenario, but it was just a lot of fun. I got, into the character. I got to kind of play with it and do things and have a great time, and everyone was a good sport, and I really enjoyed it. I don't think D&D is ever going to be my thing, but I had a great time with it, and I like that now it's something I can do. Right? I can play a short scenario and have a good time with it. And I was worried I wouldn't be creative enough, but it all worked out in the end, and I just really enjoyed it. So scheduled events, I would give a thumbs up. The Arkham Horror event was poorly organized. We really kind of had no idea what was going on. The people we were playing with didn't know that they were supposed to bring some stuff. It wasn't really set up very well, and then people would come over and interrupt us randomly, and some people were playing it a little bit too seriously, but we had a good time. We tried the new scenario. It was a little sloppy, but the Arkham Horror card game usually is. The D&D Onslaught game was fun. I'm glad I tried it. I don't think I would buy it just because it was kind of fiddly, but it was a lot of fun. I had a good time with it. So those are kind of the main events, and then the last one I'll talk about separately as well. Second thing is friends and family. Well, I did not really have any family there other than my brother, but I had a great time with him, spent the whole time with him, other than when, he had some work calls or, whatever. Friends, I didn't see any, long-time friends, but I saw a lot of people that I know from the retreat or from the cruise. We made some plans to play some games at those events later in the year. So, I got to see some people I know, say hi to people that I know, had a good time. Definitely not the highlight of the trip, other than spending time with Ken, right? That was great. But sort of seeing the other people that I casually know, it was good. It was nice. Had a good time. Summoner Wars tournament. Well, this one was a disappointment because we scheduled too many things and we got the day wrong, and we thought that it was on Saturday when it was actually on Friday. So we showed up with our Summoner Wars stuff ready to go, only to learn that we did not have a tournament to go to. So my brother and I played a couple games of Summoner Wars and then called it a day. I always love it, but the event, obviously, since it didn't happen, was not a highlight of my trip. The St. Elmo's Steakhouse, always a great place. Gen Con was really crowded this year, and the steakhouse filled up. So we had our big steak dinner on like Friday at starting at 9:45 p.m., which I'll tell you is a little bit late for dinner, especially for a big heavy steak dinner. But doesn't matter. It was delicious, and I look forward to going again. The place has great service. The food is fantastic. It's expensive, but once a year it's okay. and I look forward to going again. And then the last thing was the vendor hall. It was kind of as it usually is, but like 7 times as crowded. It was so horribly crowded. This place, and it's poorly organized because they have, like, in the middle of walkways, just this trash can sitting there. In the middle of the hall, you'll come across one, and nobody really, everyone has to kind of go around it, so it creates artificial choke points. That part wasn't great. But, seeing the booths was fun. Seeing how things were set up was fun. Seeing games, trying new things. There were games that I didn't know I was going to try that ended up being fantastic. One of them we'll talk about here in a moment. I enjoy the vendor hall. My foot was bothering me and it was crowded, so I liked it a little bit less this year. But it was nice that we had some sort of events to go to at various times, so it wasn't just all shopping in a crowded marketplace all the time. Always a lot of fun, though. You can see a lot of great things, and always a highlight. So, other than the Summoner Wars tournament, everything was a delight. And the Summoner Wars tournament was a delight. It just wasn't for me because we missed it. So that's kind of how that was. I mentioned that the place was crowded. It was more crowded than I've seen it be. I think 2019 was the last kind of every year Gen Con I went to, and it was sold out then, and it was sold out again here, and it was just so terrible. There were parts, you just there was a time when I had to just go outside and go upstairs and sit to kind of get away from the crowd. People were bumping you everywhere. People brought, young children in strollers or people with mobility concerns on those scooters. And that doesn't make things any easier because the halls aren't wide enough for that. But mostly it was just people not pushing and shoving. Everybody was polite, but just being in an area with lots of people. And then, some people don't smell the best or, don't know how to walk. And don't know how to keep going in one direction, have to kind of stop and point or walk 2 by 2. All of that is just very frustrating. Did not enjoy that aspect, but I had a great time with being there. Just didn't love the crowds and didn't love that my foot hurt. So now I thought it would be fun to talk about the 5 best games that I played. So we talked with Ilya a few weeks ago. We talked about the games we were looking forward to, and let me see. 2 of them, 3 of them were on my list. So I will talk about them. Let's see if I can find a picture of them too. I don't know why I can't find them here. Well, some of them we might not have. Okay. I don't know why this is so hard for me. Okay. Well, anyway, I'm not going to sit and look for. I found it. All right. So I'm going to pull up the banners and the screen, and we'll talk about number 5. All right, number 5 is a game I was looking forward to. I was hoping it would be there, but it was just a prototype. It's going to go on to Kickstarter or some other version of Kickstarter in the near future. And that game is Defenders of the Realm, the new version. So I really liked Defenders of the Realm back in the day. I still enjoy it. I'm really looking forward to the Freedom 5 version. And honestly, that's what keeps me from being as excited about this, because I think Freedom 5 is going to be an even better version of the game. But, let me pull up the picture, sorry. This is the new reimagining from Greater Than Games, or as it apparently is called now, Flat River Group. And it's the same basic concept, but the artwork is better. There's no Comic Sans. Lots of the rules have been streamlined so that the game takes, in the 1 hour range rather than the 3 hour range. And also, the various event cards have a little key on them to help you find where things are on the map, so you don't just have to look around and wonder. There's some aspects that were a little bit weird. They might have been part of the demo, right? The demo could have been taught incorrectly, but I had a good time with it. Kent didn't love it, but I enjoyed it. It made me want to come home and play original Defenders of the Realm. So I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes. I'm hoping that they'll bring in some of the expansions like the Dragons expansion and some of the other aspects of it, but I also hope they don't bloat it. There were only 4 characters, for example, rather than the 40 that are available in the in the current version. We'll see where it goes, but hopefully Freedom 5 comes and knocks this one down for me as well. So that was my number 5, Defenders of the Realm. Only played it once, but had a good time with it. Let's go on to number 4. All right, Defenders of the Realm was one I knew was going to be, well, it was on my list, right? Something I was looking forward to. The next one was a complete surprise to me. And it is a game from Smirk and Laughter. I think it's Smirk. It's got to be Smirk and Laughter. And the game is called Adventure Party, or Adventure Party, the role-playing party game. And what this is D&D for absolute beginners. What you do is you sort of have a scenario. Everybody has a character and some equipment, and there's some adventure you're going through. And when it's your turn, you're going to tell what your plan is. Like, you have a mirror of multiplication or something, and you are a necromancer. And so, you said you're going to raise up a skeleton, and then you're going to multiply it 2,000 times, and it's going to swarm the enemy and bite them and turn them into skeletons themselves or whatever. And then behind your screen, you're going to roll a 20-sided die, and then kind of D&D rules, right? A 20 is going to be an absolute critical success, a 1's a critical failure, and in between, you've got, a 9 or lower is a failure, a 10 is barely a success. You're then going to tell the story of what happened after your roll. So, if I talked about how the skeletons then combined and turned into a gigantic skeleton and beat down the enemy and crushed it into pulp, you'll know that I rolled pretty well. If I talk about how, the skeletons, when they multiplied, they only multiplied individual bones, and then they sort of bounced around and beat on a couple of the enemies and dealt some minor damage, you might think, okay, well, I probably rolled a lot lower. So then everyone's going to guess what number I had rolled based upon my experience and how I've told the story. Points are awarded based upon how well you did. It is a delightfully fun game. Silly, very light on rules. Almost, you almost don't need to score it, but if you have someone in your life who is interested in role-playing games, this might be a good intro to kind of test the waters. I had a great time with Adventure Party, played it twice while I was there, and bought a copy. Just a surprisingly enjoyable game. That is my number 4. Let's go on to number 3. My number 3 is also one that was on my list when we did the Gen Con preview. This is a new implementation of an old game, one that I have in my closet. The game is called Harvest. So the new version of Harvest is a big box version of what the old Harvest was, a small kind of large tuck box, large card box game. New Harvest is in a big box. It's got wooden meeples. It's got double layered boards, and it's still a small game. It's a small game in a big box, but it's just so much fun, right? It's a simple worker placement game. The turn selection mechanism is still kind of interesting on it. You've got your own special ability, and what you're trying to do ultimately is plant vegetables and fruits in your garden, on your farm, I guess, and tend them so they grow, and then harvest them for points. It's really straightforward. It's great as a solo game as well. I played it a couple times solo. I find this one to be a delight. It's one I look forward to trying with lots of people. It's a small game in a big box. It's a little overproduced, but it was. I'm glad that I picked it up. That is my number 3, Harvest. Let's go to number 2. All right, number 2 is a game. It's the game I alluded to a few times that I did not know was going to be there. Um, it's a game that has been talked about for years. Every time somebody talks about, it's a re-implementation of an older game. And every time someone talks about the older game, largely they mention this new one that they had heard was coming out. Well, it's out, folks. Well, it's not out. It's going to be out in November. But it was at Gen Con, and we signed up for a demo of it and played it and just had a fantastic time. This game is Tales of the Arthurian Knights. And this game is just fantastic. Now, it kind of, Tales of the Arabian Nights, the older game it's based on, you would kind of go through a wacky adventure. You had some sort of weird scoring system, and you were trying to have certain adventures. They could be kind of wild, and you'd kind of tell this story mostly reading out of a book. And a lot of that is preserved here, right? You still are having crazy adventures, but they are more structured. No longer are you rolling this sort of plus and minus die to kind of go to adjacent passages. You won't be helping an old beggar and find yourself at the sex change spring. You'll, have a result that's kind of narratively sound. It's largely an adventure, right? It's kind of running around on a board. What you'll do is you'll draw these encounter cards, and then these numbers are going to line up with another sheet where it has these acts. You're in different acts of the game. So early in the game, this magnificent feast might be 2212. Later in the game, it might be 1312. It's going to give you a different sort of prefix to come up with the number to find. And you're going to go around this board. You have quests you're trying to accomplish. You know what and where they are, so you have some direction. We had the designer, Andrew Parks, was reading the stories to us and did a great job and really made it a lot of fun. The rules are very light here. This game will work for just about anybody. I will say probably something that's going to be better with lower player counts, because with bigger counts, there's a lot of reading and story and not a whole lot to do when it's not your turn. So, and it's also not going to be for everyone. You don't have a lot of control, but it was a lot of fun. The story we had was great. Went home just thinking about it, wanting to play it again. I think this one's going to be really popular, and it certainly was one of the best games at Gen Con, and one that really surprised me. Number 2, Tales of the Arthurian Knights. So that leaves us with just one more. Let's go to number 1. All right, number 1 was something that was on my list. I had heard that it was interesting. If you look at the box, it doesn't look all that much, but this game is just fire. This is, let's find here we have Landmarks. Landmarks from, who is the publisher? It feels like it should be CGE, but it's not. Well, from someone. Floodgate, sorry. Landmarks basically is a Codenames style game. One person has a card that shows a map of the island, and you're trying to guide your team to go to certain spaces. And there's going to be some seed words on the board, and you're ultimately going to think up a one-word clue and put it out on the board, or put it out there, and you're going to try and hope that it will connect with some words that are out there and not connect with others, to give your team enough information on where to put it, and then based upon where you go, that's going to be what you find. There are traps that will hurt you, there are curses which will cause you to lose, an amulet that protects you from curses, and then water that's going to refill your canteen, and the canteen is the number of tiles you have. If you run out of tiles, you lose. You're trying to get to an exit. There's also treasures to be found. The treasures are not worth anything, except you feel bad if you left them behind. And my brother and I just played this a lot of times, and it is so deviously hard, because giving a one-word clue is easy, but not when you have to, you're worried about making it connect with one thing here and one thing there. We had an example. I needed him to get to a certain space, and the clues out were like liar, politician, and eagle. And so I was racking my brain to pull up a politician who isn't famous for being evil or lying or dishonest and isn't associated with a country that has an eagle. So not an American politician, not a Roman politician. It was hard. And then, it's very satisfying when we get there. Very frustrating when we don't. It's just a really interesting game. This one's going to be a big hit, I predict. It's the kind of game you will play and you'll say, well, let's just go ahead and play it again. And it's like Codenames, but the fact that you are coming up with the clues, the clue words yourself makes you sort of the master of your own disaster. And it requires a level of kind of forward thinking. I can use this clue, but then I'll create an area I can't ever go to. So I need to make sure, because I'll never be able to come up with a clue that connects all these things. It was just so fantastically fun. Highly recommended. I enjoyed it more than even I thought I would. That is my number one game from Gen Con, Landmarks. And there we have it, right? There's our Gen Con recap. Gen Con I would give a 9 out of 10 to. It was a great experience. The only real thing I had was the pain in my foot, and of course the fact that it was super crowded, and I missed the Summoner Wars tournament. But everything else was just a lot of fun. Great games. I only brought home about 6 games. I think that's right. And that's impressive, right? Because I usually bring home a lot of games. But like I'd mentioned before, I already had a lot of them, or have a lot coming. And there were a lot of previews and so many role-playing games at Gen Con that, it was a little easier to come home with a lighter load. But I did get some great things, and I had a great time. And I look forward to going. I don't know if I'll go next year, but I'll go sometime in the future. And that's going to have to do it for us. I'm going to wish you safe travels, courage when you need it, and I hope to see you back again next week for another episode of Wednesday Whimsy, when we probably don't talk about Gen Con. Anyway, bye-bye.